Assalamu alaikum, Shahab. Today we'll talk about the marketing plan. I'll be presenting with you today a general guideline, a little document that I'll be including that you could go through. So let me just go over it kida, quickly, just to highlight some things. So basically, you'll be providing here a strategic marketing plan. In general, it's for a new business idea for a product or a service. And the plan could also be used to develop a current that's existing company, an already established one. But the focus here is more on a new business idea. So what we need to do is, first of all, make sure you go through the second chapter in our textbook, and also refer to the Appendix A, marketing plan that's provided, just to get an idea. Now, we want something better than that. I don't honestly like what's there, but yeah, that's why I need much more details. I love details. The deliverable at the end would be a marketing plan report between 8 to 10 pages. This seems to be very brief. In general, you need much more. But I want you to be concise. But there's a catch. I do provide here, the font size, etc., the spacing. These 8 to 10 pages should exclude the TOC, the table of contents, the executive summary, and any charts, tables, graphs, figures, etc. The appendix is expected. It is not something optional because of the lack of space, you will need an appendix to include all other necessary details. Basically, almost every section will have an appendix, right? So in general, it's like you have a write-up for each section, and then you summarize it in the plan. Okay, summarizing it doesn't mean that it's going to lack details. It needs to stand alone at the end. Finally, inshallah, we'll be having a final presentation on this by each team. Yeah, and you're running around 10-15 minutes, probably 15 to 20. Again, depends, we'll see. So let's go through some guidelines here. Again, some information you'll notice may be too detailed. Some of this information may not even be available. Some information is not applicable. Again, use your judgment based on your own idea and proceed forward with this. And of course, by all means, get in touch with me if you have any questions. The first section here is the executive summary of the marketing plan. Now, the executive summary is actually the last thing you should do, not the first, but it should appear first in your plan, in your report. The reason is, of course, it's an executive summary. You don't do it till you're done with the full plan. Then now I would go and I would provide a summary of the whole plan. Now, some of the things that I've noticed before is that executive summaries, most of the executive summaries I see are always wrong. And usually the problem is some of you would go through just the table of contents. We will do this and we will do segmentation and we will talk about this and we'll talk about that. This is not the thing. You need to tell me exactly what you're going to do. What's your value proposition? Right? Who's your target market specifically, your positioning, getting into your marketing mix elements, anything about the industry itself that we should know, the marketing environment and the macro environmental factors, and what have you, right? So it's basically a summary. But by reading this, I don't need to read the report. That's why it's called an executive summary. Why is it called an executive summary? Because an executive can read it without going through all the details and understand very well what you're going to do, right? So moving on here, we have the industry, the company snapshot and situational analysis. 1 minute. Let me get back to here. Okay. So if I were to just 1 minute. Okay, so the industry here, we want a situational analysis of the context you're in, right? This would include the SWOT and the macro environmental factors, the marketing environment, right? Which would include the economic factors, political factors, social, cultural, technological, environmental, and legal or regulatory factors. What we want here is how each of these factors could affect your business positively or negatively, and you need to be pretty specific here. Of course, you'll be talking about any necessary even trends in the market, etc., that we should be aware of. So in talking about the industry, we need, like, general guideline, the size of this industry, the growth, if we can get any figures, the current trends if available. Again, macro environmental factors, I think this is something we've already talked about. Some demographics of probably we're talking about the kingdom here, some stats and trends in your industry and how it's relevant to your business. Then we get into the competitive review, right? And this is a very important section. Whilst it could be covered in macro environmental factors, I want you to talk about it here because this is a very important section. So when we talk about competition, I want you to address the direct and indirect competitors. Key competitors you should provide more details on. Any kind of data that you could get about them, market shares, sales, target market, their strategies that they use, possibly positioning that you could get, their current marketing mixes, any of the campaigns they've done, something that we could learn from all that, their media strategies, overall an assessment, and hopefully a perceptual map of this competitive scene. Something very, very important that will be in the plan itself. I mean, some of this information may be too much to put in the report itself, but could be added in the appendix. But I definitely want a matrix comparing your brand and to the competitors' brands that are competing. Moving forward, we have marketing research. To be honest, I feel we need to have marketing research actually tops before a company and situational analysis, but because sometimes it's done when we're working on an established company, and sometimes that the order may not work that way. But in general, just let's have marketing research first, so just that it flows well. I probably should rearrange it anyways. Any case, it's not going to make a big difference here, but just for flow purposes. So I want you in marketing research to actually conduct a primary marketing research. When you already did marketing research here, but that was desktop research, secondary research, right? Here we want the primary research. So you need to really tell me more about your customers and the value proposition or business idea that you have. This would include a possible mix of interviews or focus groups, observations, surveys, and methodologies that you think would be required to understand more about your market. In general, details of each of the methodology you use should be provided, demographics of respondents, the research design, the findings, conclusions, recommendations from this research. In general, I would expect you to do two things: qualitative research and quantitative research. So with a qualitative research, right, you could do a bunch of interviews and get first feedback on understanding this market more, and perhaps feedback on your own idea. And then go for quantitative research, a full-fledged survey. right? Of course, in both, you do need to get my approval before you proceed forward so that I could do a quick review, but do give me time, right, when you want that done. Some of the things طبعا, that you might think of is the market research problem. What am I trying to really investigate here? What am I trying to study? What are the questions I'm interested in asking? Now, of course, whilst we want to ask a ton of questions, people get bored, and we need to be really keen on trying to ask the questions that really matter, right? Such as the customer pain points that customers actually go through. Is this really a pain point? How frequent it is? Yada, 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 yada. And then some more details on how your solution is going to provide this for them. Objectives, methodology, design, right? If, with a survey, you definitely would need to include what sample sizes you would get, methodology that you'll be using. And in general, for surveys, we're looking at around at least 200 plus, right? Hopefully within your target market, but we do understand that this could be a little, given your time constraints, but try your best. Data collection and how you go about doing it, analysis, interpretation, marketing research report. So basically, this itself is a report of its own, but again, we're trying to minimize whatever is doable. I do understand there are time constraints, and we'll try to work with what we have. But again, I want you to go through this experience because this is important. Now, along with the marketing research, which is really also, again, boils down to research itself, is getting a better understanding also of your customers. But here it gets into a little even more depth. Some of it may overlap here. Now, so I let you to sort it out. But again, I wanted to just highlight this a little more specifically. So we want a customer analysis, right? A user profile, right? This could be their demographics, geographic, psychographic, behavioristic variables, whatever seems to be applicable. Doesn't mean you need to use all of these. But these will be used mostly when we think of segmentation. But again, use whatever is applicable. This is very important. We need a customer journey map for your customers, right? We want to understand how customers go through the current status, right? Or if this is an existing business, right? What are customers currently going through as their journey before they arrive, during their purchase process in your website, in your app, in your store, etc., and then after it, right? So it's like a pre, during, and post. And we have all the details. It's something that I've discussed with you before. You could go and check them out in our previous discussion. The buying decision process, as much of it as we can know on how actually consumers or people or even businesses actually make these decisions. Again, this could be a business, it may not be a consumer. Who buys this product, right? What do we know about them? Who influences the purchase decision? Who makes the decision, and any decision criteria that makes customers choose this thing, right? We want a customer archetype, a persona, right? Can you draw that person for us, right? And describe them for us. Remember the exercise we did on target markets and how we got into the life of the customer. Can you get us into the life of this customer? And what part is your business idea going to play in his life, right? But we do need to get some kind of comprehensive perspective on the life of that customer. I know, sounds overwhelming, but relax, right? You could do it. Try your best. Again, brand review. Again, I'll skip this mostly if you're an existing brand, you might want to get into this more. But I'd move on here with marketing goals. What are you trying to achieve in your marketing program based on your situation analysis, and how would you move forward into the future, right? These may be defined again in different terms, in terms of sales volume, market share, sales revenue, profit, number of customers, etc. That's something for you to decide, and you let us know. But it's important to understand the difference between marketing goals versus communication objectives. They're not the same thing. Segmentation analysis. Now again, so we get into our STP here, the ST part, right? In segmenting your market and deciding on which segment you want to target, what variables are you using, why do those matter, and how is this related to what you're doing? Who's your primary target market? Be very specific. And again, try to create a customer archetype, a persona that we can actually visualize who actually is going to buy this product. You can have surely a secondary target market and a tertiary one, if applicable. That's up to you. Positioning, again, is very important. What's your positioning strategy and how are you going to use it? Make sure you write the positioning statement very clearly. Remember, we talked about that. Moving to our marketing mix, and here our marketing mix could be 4 Ps, could be 7 Ps, depending on if you're a product or a service, or probably could be a mix of both, right? So in the product, again, if you're a current existing product or a company, you will assess the current situation, etc. But and the product mix aligns and all of that. But you want to get, if this is something new, right, you want to tell us your value proposition here. You really want to expand more on it and tell us basically what differentiates you from others, from the current competition. How would this matter to your customers and your target market? What benefits are they seeking? What jobs to be done are for the customers? And getting into the PODs and POPs, possibly product quality, design, features, service, etc., warranties, guarantees, labeling, etc., packaging, whatever it is that's applicable to your product. Providing an analysis of the product mix is mostly for established companies, but if you are creating a new business idea, and it happens to be an app or even a website, we need the wireframes, right? And the blueprint sketches. So basically, if you're doing an app, don't just tell me I'm going to do an app for customers and that's it. That I want the full layout, right? This is how the customer is going to see it. Page 1, this is the first thing. Here's the second, here's the third. When he clicks this, he goes here. When he clicks this, he goes here. When he clicks this, he goes here. Sometimes you may end up having a multi-sided market, something like, you know, the Ubers and others, where you actually end up having to create 2 apps, right? The driver and the customer. The customer sees something and the driver sees something else. In this case, you need to create 2, not 1. And each one has its own details, right, on how they go about. This is, of course, important to also gauge your customer journey, because this is part of the customer journey. Details matter, the customer interface matters. So it's the real deal, right? We're not just trying to bake this stuff quickly. I also want you to include a section here on branding and the use of different brand elements to strengthen your brand and its equity. Now, of course, the naming of your brand and why this name seems to be a good name, right? Perhaps even including what other names you've decided to consider, the other brand elements that you can include, their slogans, etc. The website, I did have previous students who actually reserved even the domain of the website, not just not just mention it, Kida, because there's a high chance you might think of a brand name and the brand name does not exist. Well, we want the real deal. You need to check from the ministry if the name exists or not. You need to check online if the website exists or not, right? And all of that stuff. So we want something that's that's real, right? We're not trying to make this up just for the sake of a report. We want to hopefully get this thing possibly real, right? And of course, you could also include characters if that's applicable. Um, Leveraging secondary brand associations, if that's applicable. Again, I'll let you think of it. Check our branding topic. Moving on to pricing, again, if this is a new business idea, what pricing strategy do you plan to use? Provide as much details as you can and your rationale. So if this is a one product that you're creating, right, what's the price you're charging? We need exactly what that price is and why you're using that, besides, of course, the business model behind it. If it's an established company, again, you'll do an assessment of the current pricing and analysis of how they're doing, etc. And by understanding their opportunities, challenges, goals, etc., you'll decide how you want to move forward. Moving to place or distribution here, again, decide on your distribution strategy. Right? So are we going to distribute your product and provide a rationale? What channels I'm going to use? If this is, again, an already established company, again, the same thing. You'll be assessing current distribution strategy and channels that are used, and then is this really the best way to reach customers directly or indirectly, and then manage the process, right? Moving on to, again, some very important section here, which is on promotion and marketing communications, right? We do want a marketing communications plan addressing advertising, sales promotion, digital marketing, event and experiences marketing, mobile marketing, direct marketing, PR, publicity, personal selling, whatever seems to be applicable, but at least you'll have advertising and digital marketing in general, right? Of course, if it's an established company, you will be doing an assessment of their current promotion strategy and how effective is it, what needs to be changed, what needs to be used, what other brand promotion elements should be used. And in general, regardless whether it's new or current, how would you encourage word of mouth, right? Some of you remember in the book review have chosen a book on word of mouth. Use some of that stuff that you learned in these books to implement here, right? How would you generate more word of mouth for your product? I want you, of course, here to make sure you also, as I said, I want to emphasize that I want to see an ad, a real ad. This could be a print ad for a product, could be a video, could be just a snap, right? But it needs to have like a storyboard, right? And something that we can actually see, right? Be creative, be colorful, and make sure that it's not just for the sake of creativity, but for the sake of strategy on how are you going to really get people to take action from your promotional campaign. So you may end up having a whole promotional campaign with a slogan, etc., media buying, and what media channels would be good to use. Something that's very important here to mention when it comes to digital marketing. Now, I know digital marketing is huge, right? But I do want some important coverage here in terms of search and what are the keywords people might find you in. How are you going to perhaps use email marketing, social media? Now, of course, please don't tell me, oh, we'll use social media and influencers. You get a zero there. We need details, right? So social media, other than, of course, reserving the domains or the users' accounts for your business. But what are you going to say in general? What's your strategy here? What kind of content do you think you want to provide? Perhaps even your brand personality online. Which of the social media networks will you actually end up using? Now, again, you don't have all the resources to put yourself in each one of these social media, but what matters to you, right? Is it Instagram? Is it a Snap? Is it Twitter, et cetera, et cetera? It could be a combination, but we need rationale as well, right? And what would the bio say, right? If it's on Twitter, if it's on Instagram, show me what it is, right? What will it read, right? Yeah, we want that level of details. I know how you feel now, but don't worry, this is a good exercise for you. Plus, make sure that if you're thinking of using something like influencers, right? Oh, I'll use influencers. That's not enough, of course, right? Who are you going to use? Why, right? Same thing applies to social media itself, right? Which and why. The rationale is important. You could also provide some samples of things that you could actually post. That would be a plus, right? At least 1 or 2 posts. Again, I'm not expecting a full plan here, but at least something to show me that you know what you want to post, right? Again, checking on the promotional mix elements and what seems to matter to your business, to your customers. Where will you find them, and why that channel is where you should be in. Moving forward, if this is a service, you also want to include the other 3 Ps, the process, right? The actual procedures, mechanisms, flow of activities by which a service is delivered. The service delivery operating systems as applicable. Probably there'll be a flow chart. Now, remember with this process, again, some of it may be redundant from the customer journey maps, but you may be able to also do a service blueprint. In brief, again, I'm not expecting too much, but at least something for us to understand the back end of your business, in addition to what customers see as touch points, etc. Physical evidence, again, of how the environment is when it comes to the service delivered. How does the customer interact with the firm itself and the company? Any tangible components that they could see, right? And visualize. People involved in your company as humans, right? And their role. Finally, we have the financial projections, implementation, measurement, and control. Provide some financial projections. Again, I'm not a big fan of financial projections, especially for a new business, but at least you need to give me some kind of projection, some kind of forecast, at least for a couple of years. One thing that's also important to understand is make sure you include, and this will be probably in the industry side of that we talked about earlier, on the market size, right, and your possible share in it, right? I did speak in an earlier video on how do you estimate market size, that I'll try to share it with you as well. So implementation include things like milestones that you want to achieve by such and such dates, budgets, and timelines, right? How would you measure and control the performance of your execution of your marketing plan, right? What key metrics are you going to use, right? Your KPIs, basically, your budget forecasts, etc. What is it that how would we know that we're doing well, right? Besides the original marketing goals, there might be other details that we need as key metrics, right? Finally, we have the appendices, and in here, you include all the relevant information that's required for the marketing plan and implementation, especially since, as I said, your space is limited for the marketing plan, so the appendices will be rich. But make sure, of course, the appendices is pretty well formatted and very clear. Have even in the appendices, in the table of contents, have Appendix A, B, C, etc. Right? So that we know what each appendix is about. I also want you to include in the appendix the business model canvas to better understand your business. Again, some of this stuff may be also repeated from what we already talked about. It's a good kind of healthy repetition to do these things hand in hand, but some of the things may be a bit extra. And just include the canvas itself as part of the appendix. I know some things may here overlap, some again may be not applicable, some of it may not be even available, but just do your best. I know it sounds a little overwhelming, but don't worry. I'm sure you'll do a great job. Again, this is a general guideline. There could be more details here, more details there. There are different applications, etc. But again, I just wanted to present this for you so that you can have fun. I hope you do. Make the most of it. Do ask me questions. Do not wait till last minute. Usually when you wait till last minute, you're probably doing it wrong. And you probably will be getting a lower grade, right? So do ask me questions. Let's communicate and keep me in the loop on how you're progressing, especially as you start working on your marketing research side to understand customers, whether qualitative, quantitative research. Right. With this, I think I'm done with this. I hope this has been a brief, I know it's a bit of a brief explanation, but I hope it does the job, and use references by all means, not just your textbook, but you could always definitely use other references and include them also. Include, of course, a reference section in your marketing plan. Forgot to mention that, right? But I think that's basically does it. I hope you found this helpful. And ask me any questions, Shabab. We can discuss all this in our class. Thank you. فأمان الله. مع السلامة. وموفقين.